All right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Furtadio Experience, where this is the podcast that leaves you feeling more conscious, more engaged, and more fulfilled. So, no better guest than Arnold Flores. He's an incredibly inspiring man. 13 years as a coal miner, and now is a creator and coach, and someone who I had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, and I just said, you have to come on the podcast. You have to share your story with the listeners, and you have to share your story again with myself, as I learned so much from you, Arnold, and I'm really looking forward to this. So before we dive in, how's the day going so far?
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, the day is going good. I am so ramped up and jacked up and excited about little things in my life because I don't know the answers to them. And that's what makes me turn and spin each day is going like, well, what's going to be interesting today because I can't really predict anything. So that's what's going on for me pretty much every day and today. So I'm jacked up, man. I'm excited.
I love that you approach life with, yeah, I don't know the answers, but that's awesome, instead of being fearful and running from them. And I'm sure your story will kind of give some insight to the listener on how you approach that in your life now. And so that's where I want to start. And that's where we're going to go from there is, who is Arnold Flores? And I'd love to hear your story. And I'd love for you to tell the listeners your story.
Absolutely. It all started on March 20th, 1983. And I was put on planet Earth in a dusty apartment building. That's where my mom and dad, I don't even know the whole story to it, but that's where my mom and dad had me at. Um, so that was in Houston, Texas. And before I know it, at 5 years old, I'm going into what I'm starting to learn about poverty, starting to learn about how hard it is for my parents. Um, so we'll go into the nutshell of where the good stuff is pretty quick here because I did have a rough childhood as far as money's concerned. But I'm really excited to go into the part where I started to go through high school. And in my about 19, 20, I start to decide what I'm going to want to do with my life. And looking around in my coal mining community, I figured I got to go with a job that's going to put food on the table, that's going to challenge me. What I can't afford college. What am I going to do? So I do my test the waters with construction. I test the waters with carpet cleaning. And then one day I become a sewage worker. And I don't even remember how it unfolded, but I just got into a sewage job one summer. And then they needed the help and I just stuck with it for about 3 years. And so I'm in my early 20s and I'm getting paid $7 an hour. And I'm starting to question things like, am I going to do this for the rest of my life? Like, what am I going to do? And one late, hot, dusty evening, they sent me out to a coal mine. And so I pull into the coal mine. I see this giant 280-ton truck pull into the wash bay there to clean it off. And I'm looking at this thing going like, like I want to drive one of those things. I wonder if I could do that. And that I didn't know it at the time, but that kickstarted my newer mindset of, okay, I don't know how this is going to unfold. I don't know the answer, but how it all started was just asking myself a question. And that's when things started to turn for me. Um, so I start diving in and networking and applying, and a few months later, I get the job. So it's a celebration day because I'm going from $7 an hour to $19 an hour. And I'm thinking like, well, like this is like a quantum leap in my whole life. Like I've never seen this money before ever. Whoa. Um, and that started my 13-year career in coal mining. And I start to develop this insight and perspective of how fast things can unfold when you ask questions to yourself and really study at it and then take the action on it. But it doesn't stop there because I'm no longer a coal miner. But as I'm starting to get into this really dusty, hard job where there's no plumbing, it's a 12-hour shift. There's an hour commute to, hour commute away. You don't shut down for anything, including holidays. So it was starting to take its toll after about 2 or 3 years into the coal mining career, and I'm in my early 20s. Um, but going forward a few more years, a spooky night happens. It unfolds right before me. We're working a night shift, and communication is through CB radio because the pieces of equipment are so big that you need to communicate in a safe way. But that night, I hear a mayday, 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 man down, man down. Okay, when you hear the word man down, you know it's serious. Someone's got a big cut. They could be stuck. They could have a broken leg. It's very serious. We need to get medical help to them right away. And they've had several, almost daily. Well, not daily, but I've been through several Maydays where they get cleared out pretty fast. Sometimes it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but they don't last long. But this night, after calling man down, and an hour passes, and it is strange. It is spooky, and I'm starting to get the feeling that something's not good. So I'm just sitting there in this giant truck, looking into the coal pit, and it looks like you're staring into the abyss. It's like headlights and coal just absorbing it. So it's just an eerie moment for me in my life. I look at the clock, and then it's 2 hours have passed, and I'm thinking, okay, something's not good, and the clouds start to roll in. All these little effects of like, is this a movie? Like, what is going on here? And then I see a little truck just hitting these dirt roads, bumping through, not slowing down. I'm thinking, whoa, like they're coming towards me, and they're probably going to tell me something. So they pull up right in front of my truck, and they say, Arnold, shut the truck off now. Get off your truck. And I'm like, whoa, like we're not joking around here. I grab my stuff. I climb down this 12-foot ladder to get into the truck, and nobody's talking. Nobody's saying a word. I'm thinking, okay, like we all kind of know what's going on, but nobody's communicating yet. So we get up to what we call the top, which has plumbing, and everybody cleans up for the shift. And as I'm walking in, it's about 3 a.m. and everybody looks fatigued, coal dust everywhere. There's a couple people crying. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know what. I don't want to admit it, what's going on. But no one's given me solid information of what's going on. And so we wait for the mine manager to come in, the big boss. He comes in, and there's no break. He just gets up right away in front of everybody and says, hey guys, we just had a fatality out here. Somebody was just killed. And that was like the first rush of like, okay, like I knew it, but I didn't know it. And it hits me. And being at 3 a.m. and looking around and seeing all the fatigue, I'm thinking what other people are thinking is like, well, do we come back to work like the next shift? What do you want us to do? And someone does raise their hand. In fact, they're just like right next to me, and they raise their hand. And the mine manager says, we're just going to go ahead and keep up. We're going to continue work. And that was like, I'm not in the right spot. I'm not in the right place. This is a really hard time to learn this. Is very unfortunate. But I got this street smarts education on fear. on how it took over people and myself, of going like, well, what do I do? Like, is this really where I need to belong? Again, we're going to go back to the, asking yourself those questions and not being in denial about them, and going like, okay, I need to do something more. I need to do something different. I need to invest in other things, which led to a $2 course or investment, which was an auxiliary cord for my iPhone. And that time, at that day, I was like, I got to do something different. What can I do? My mind is a mess. Things are not looking good. I can't just quit like tomorrow. So I go to Walmart, grab my little $2 cord, plug it into my iPhone, and I just start pounding in personal development for like 2 years. I mean, just solid. And I turned that piece of equipment into a university on wheels. I just, instead of listening to the game, instead of listening to lyrics that don't really serve me well and program me into something that, doesn't make me a good person, all these books just started to come in. And then I started to reprogram and rewire my mind and my brain so that I could get fit again. And that's where another strange moment happened, where I connected the dots from growing up in poverty. All this stuff, I was like, wow, if I look at the whole map here, this is making sense. I'm on the right track. I don't know the answer, but I'm going because I'm asking better questions. And then after about 2 years of personal development books, I go into marketing books. I go into copywriting. I start to spend my vacation time at networking events, like with Copy Chief, Perry Marshall, and I did that for several years. And then after assembling armor and putting up the discipline, it took me 7 years to quit that coal mine, and I just had to do it. And everything wasn't perfect at the time, but my mindset was starting to reframe risk and reframe questions and think about just my own position in life differently. And so that was a bit of a longer talk than I wanted to on trying to nutshell that in, but that's how I developed from, right from the start, being born in an apartment, and then investing in pen and paper and just starting to map out, okay, what about my past? How can I reframe this? How is this unfolding? Was it really my parents' fault? Stuff that I was like, I needed to ask instead of like blaming, and I was having responsibility for it. And that gave me so much more confidence to move forward in areas that I didn't feel confident in. And so, yeah, that's Arnold. That's who Arnold Flores is just this rugged guy, still a rugged guy, loving to help other people see that too, and not be in so much shame about it. Because bringing your whole self to the game is the answer. It's the key to the next level of wherever you want to go. As long as you bring your whole self to the game, you won't have to go out there and search for other things like products or apps or websites. You'll just be confident to go and to start a new adventure. So yeah, that's Arnold.
I love that. I love that you talk about showing up with your whole self, and that is the answer. And I want to kind of go back a little bit and talk about the great reframe is what I'm kind of like almost hearing is it took like 7 years or however long, you decided that it took, and you did 2 years of mindset. Then you jumped to marketing and copywriting and kind of listening probably as your curiosity went along answering those questions. But for those that are listening and have a trouble like kind of going within and asking questions and are having trouble reframing, where did you even begin? And like when you were 7 years down the road, what did you find that resonated with you right away? How did you, because we talked in our last conversation about a lot of the newer kind of self-help and personal development can be a little addicting, with just answers. So I'm curious what you started to reprogram your mind with, and thoughts on questioning, asking for those that haven't done it that much.
That's a great question, Justin. Um, Information these days is too much of it is dangerous. And in a push button culture where everything is super fast, cheeseburgers, movies, um, even pornography. I mean, you could have it in seconds because of a little device in your pocket. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you want to have earth shattering questions in your universe, in your mind, in your life, you have to first look at how many distractions are coming in, how many things, how many inputs are coming in and bloating your mind, your heart, your soul, even food. Like all of this stuff is distractions. And I get very obsessed and I get very serious about it because everywhere you go, something's trying to rob your attention. Um, and some things you cannot avoid, like a family situation. Sometimes your finances get a little crazy and you don't know what to do. Um, so looking at the world like that and going, okay, like how do I take, if a problem comes to me, how am I going to take it on? Or if I've got some questions that I really want answered, how do I approach it? How do I start this thing? And that's the key word right there, start. When you're waking up in the morning, whatever time you do it at, start to ask yourself, where's my attention going? And it doesn't have to be a super crazy meditative state of, go sit on top of the mountain and talk to the sky. Nothing like that. It's really just looking at what habits are built in. So if you're reaching for the phone and you're going to email, you're going to DMs, you're going to Facebook, automatically you're hitting your dope centers and your pleasure centers, and you're teaching yourself and programming yourself to get off on that. And it feels good. And you've put no focus on the start of your day on that deep stuff where you can center, where you can remove things out of your head, and you're calibrating and centering yourself to focus on these questions that don't necessarily rely on data or analytics. It's going deeper of how I really feel about a certain thing, about my past, um, what I'm not confident in. Why have I not forgiven a certain family member? Like, why am I still holding on to that? All of a sudden, you're starting to see where all the gunk is and all of the crap that's just completely plugging up your creativity pipes. And if you want to make room for that creativity and you want to start feeling more confident in your day and you want to start taking action and reframing risk, you start practicing it in private each day with repetition and program yourself to not go for the dopamine fix, but go for that area that's more stoic, more ancient, more caveman like. And when you sit in that area and you realize that you're controlling this thing so that you can maneuver this thing throughout the day and make better choices, you will become more enlightened and unstoppable in your world because the so many distractions will try to rob that because your number one superpower in the world is focus. And it's crazy. Like the world thinks that, oh, you just turn on the news and they feel the burn. They're taking our money. They're taking our success is all screwed up. Just screaming and crying about everything. And in reality, they don't really care about that. Whoever they is in your world, the enemy. But they don't really want your money. They don't really want your success. They don't want any of that. What they want is your focus. They want this right up here. And if they can grab a hold of your focus, then it's very easy to screw up your success, to screw up your money, to screw up your emotions, and basically just slow everything down and make you bloated on too much information to the point where your soul, your spirit is walking around drunk on worry. And you can, and if you see somebody like that, you know that they're not headed down a good road, that things aren't looking too good. They need some help. So if you can help yourself from the start and just start asking yourself, what can I subtract, not add, which is what the world tells you a lot. Like put on another, get another app, get another something, but you actually don't. If you could spend time focusing on that one question of who you are, oh my gosh, the doors are going to start opening just little by little by little. You're going to start to see a gradient of light that you've never seen before. You're going to go from blind to so laser focused on things that you've never seen before. And it's really simple. It's just, how can I get rid of my pleasures that I know are not doing me any good? And how can I get to the, I hate to say it, but like the boring stuff. And if you can and master that at the start of your day, just pen, paper, no tech, put the phone in the other room, no temptations around, and then start wrestling the good stuff. Start wrestling the stuff that makes you feel icky and gross, and stop pretending to yourself. And that's when you start to get confidence. And if you do that through repetition, you're going to get more comfortable with it. And the more comfortable you get with it and more equipped you are, you can go into the air, you can start to cover more surface area on areas that you felt uncomfortable with. And you just continue. You keep moving the path, you keep moving the path. And that's how you start to become rogue in your own life. You just start to stick out much differently than other people. And you're not a copy of a copy of a copy. You're just so unique. And and the biggest thing here is once you spend time with it, you start to realize that you don't need anything from the outside. You are you. It's not even your name. Like your name is just a label that your parents gave you. But to know who you are is like, well, what made me, how come I can't answer that question? It's because we're so distracted in the world. We need to spend more time asking those questions, picking it apart, and assembling new things. So
To me, what I really hear is you talking about spending time with yourself. I think that is at the end of the day, you can't ask yourself questions when you're busy being distracted by Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, or whatever it is. Like if you're doing that, then for me, I think that was a big challenge for me for a while. Would be like I'd see something on Instagram or LinkedIn, be like, oh, they're so successful. They have this many likes. Maybe I should be more like that. And then I start comparing myself and asking questions about being like other people instead of once I started spending time with myself a lot more. I started asking myself questions. Do I really want to do that? Like I don't think I do. Like, and it's just the more I like ask questions. So for those that are maybe haven't spent as much time with themselves, or maybe they have this kind of misconception of, oh, I spending time with myself, that would be weird. What would you say to them? How do you start? How do you practice hanging out with yourself, and how did you start hanging out with yourself?
that's a great question, Justin. In today's world, um, if you can spend time alone with yourself and not feel lonely, you've broken, you're free. Okay. And how I discovered this for myself was walking. Nature itself, if you study nature, look at nature, you'll start to see it as one of the best therapists you'll ever have. And when you go out there and you're congested with a bunch of worries, doubts, overwhelm, frustration, guilt of something you did in your past, and you hold it secret. When you go out there in nature and you look at the ground, I tell myself, this ground here is going to hold my bones someday. And this is a one and done life. Weird stuff starts to happen from nature. It's like not even an equation, but you'll start to feel your focus go to the wind. You will start to hear the frequency of birds singing, how that feels so good that it's trying to distract you in a good way. And when you get out there and do that, simple things, walking, it could be going to the gym. It can be like what I do is sit here in the corner and just have no tag, have a pen and paper, read some ancient text, and just let things, no editor on, and just let things go. Just let them go. And so if you're starting, that's what I suggest is look at the strange loop of your brain and body and start walking out there in nature and just let that take over and just start to observe. Just look at the blades of grass, look at the trees and go, wow, like there's so much noise out there. Why do these sounds feel so good to me? Just hearing the trees, looking at the blades of grass, hearing some water, birds singing. It's like, what if I did this daily and just hammered in on questions that are bothering me? Will I get an answer? Yeah, you're probably going to get an answer. You're probably going to get some peace because you're just putting focus on things that are out there to help you. And nature it's free. It's only a few steps away. Uh, it won't judge you. It won't hate you. It'll show up. It'll actually, the sun will rise for you regardless of what you've done in the past. It always will. And if you can just harness that and look at it and get out of your own head. And then what I like to do is after a walk with my dog, I will come back and I'll start to write some more. I'll like start to review myself, start to go, what was I thinking about? Wow, why do I keep going to the past of when I had holes in my socks and I only had $1.30 for lunch, and my mom got mad at me for buying a book instead of depositing that because we didn't have a lot of money. Was it really my fault? Was it my mom's fault? Why did she yell at me? All of this stuff starts to make more sense when you realize she was doing her best. She didn't even know what to do. I mean, if I was that age and had that position, I wouldn't even know. So there's where the reframing starts to happen. There's where the peace the invisible rusty chain on your back starts to lift. And so that's if I could give one tip, it's that is go start walking. Just use your feet, move them anywhere you can, and study your thoughts with no TVs and ads going on. Just go with nature, and you will find out that nature, she is always there for you.
Absolutely. And as someone that grew up with redwoods in my backyard, I can
Mm,
testify that, nature is therapeutic. It's very, very therapeutic. And a lot of people, I think, claim that they don't have enough time to go on a walk or enough time to go to the gym. And as I hear you kind of talking, some light bulbs are going on and people choose to be distracted. And I think you write about this quite a bit. People choose to be distracted, whether it's watching an excessive amount of Netflix, or an excessive or just going and partying an excessive amount. So everything is okay in moderation, but when you start to do things a little bit more and more, it's because you're distracting yourself from something. So can you talk about eliminating these distractions first, like being aware enough to understand that these are in my way of where I want to go?
Yeah. Um, Pleasures. The word came when you were talking is pleasure. Observing your day and asking yourself, what's getting me off so quick, so fast, that it can be in food, it can be in entertainment, it can be in soda, like your favorite soda pop, it could be your favorite food, and you're starting to question things, going, all right, all of this stuff is programming me, all this stuff is overtaking my pleasure centers, and it feels so good to be in that pleasure that I'm not really getting anything done. uh I'm just in a mindset of escapism, that there's things you need to do because of procrastination, not looking forward to it because it might take time, it might be uh emotions involved with it. But pleasures, they hijack your whole system. um so observing your day and looking, going like, well, what is it? Maybe I get really weird about it. It could be in your breakfast. It's like, I'm not going to treat anybody good today until I get my bowl of frosted flakes, right? Um, and then you go deeper down the rabbit hole. You start to see it's kind of like an alcoholic, or somebody that's addicted to drugs. They're just not. They're very edgy. They're not fun to be around until they get their fix. Now, this works in today's tech world, business world, coal mining world, and you start to study and see that people are in a state of escapism. They want to get rid of the pain, they want a solution, and they want to get it as quick as possible. And the downside of what's going on today in the world is we've created a culture where everything is push button, turnkey, drive through, microwave. And if you don't pick up on that, it's going to take you down so many other paths of pleasure, because you think that everything needs to be fast. Everything needs to be done quicker. And the more you go down it, you just start to program yourself with the wire, the fast wire goes in. This red lane fast wire goes right into your head and saying everything should be fast, everything should be quick. I should have the answer now. When in reality, that's not true. And then when you don't have that, and you find that as an obstacle, you could go into a low grade depression over time. You could feel like you're not enough. You could feel like you're always behind and everybody's ahead. So I encourage people to start looking at their pleasures on a deep level, on a big, deep cut into yourself. I know it's going to be painful. I know it's going to hurt, but start to study and say, well, where can I start practicing just a little bit? Why am I always wanting sweet food after a supper? Why do I always need to have a packet of sugar with my tea? Why do I always need to have 3 cups of coffee? Maybe I don't. Should I try? And it starts to challenge you. And because those dope centers are going to need to rearrange and go back a little bit lower and lower and lower. So I'll go back to that word, is pleasure. Look at that, and you will have revelation in your life. You'll start to see how you're being manipulated, why it is so slow in certain areas of success. Because once you face an obstacle, you're going like, well, there's such a good little pleasure over there. Why don't I just go over there and have that? So yeah, it's pleasures. Looking at it, get out a piece of paper, list them out, and say, I can probably start to slice out some of this stuff. and it'll make you less flabby in the mind.
And even in applying that to the entrepreneurship, the writing world, the creator world, it's really coach world as well. There's these rabbit holes you can go down that have the funnels that make $10,000 in a month. This quick. And we've been hardwired, it kind of, with that red fast wire in our head, that marketing works best with us because that's what we want. We're like, oh, we want it fast. So I'm sitting here as someone who's young and has grew up in this social media fast world. I've been victim, and one of the best things that I have learned over the past year and a half is things take a long time. But I used to think, I'm like, in 3 months I'm going to be here, or I'm going to be here. But now it's just about slowing down, and success takes so much longer. And it's about it's challenging, going within and challenge. Do I really am I going to die if I don't hit 1,000 followers on Twitter in 3 months? No, absolutely not. So it is about going within and challenging these notions of fast.
Yeah, that's where it's at, is when you can remove these, back to subtraction. If you can cut out things, ask yourself, not what can I, not to add, what can I cut out today? You will see the dimension and time much differently. Certain deadlines in life don't seem like there's so much pressure to it. And so, like, the economy is really good at this, businesses, your mortgage payment, your bills each month. That's training you. I mean, we're going down a rabbit hole right here. Like, this is training your brain to think, okay, like, if I don't, here's the symbol of money, I hold it, it's in a digit in a bank account, I got to transfer it over here, otherwise bad stuff's going to happen. Okay, and then pile it on with other things. Okay, we can worry about the life stuff later. This is where I'm at. And this is what makes me either feel good, or it makes me feel really bad, or it makes me feel, and you start to see the digits differently. You start to feel low. So I encourage people to start questioning what's going on out there, and not like a conspiracy, not none of that. It's really just your whole self, your past, no longer hating it, no longer holding on to guilt, shame. And you'll realize that a lot of that programming has put pressure on how you see a lot of things today. And that's why I encourage people to see speed differently. Is there really a rush? Not really. No. What if you, I mean, you can't predict the future, but what if you died next week? And you're floating above your body, and you might be thinking to yourself, should I have been really worried about that thing? Like, I wasted time doing that? Oh, and you start to, my mission here is to teach people to overwhelm reality. Don't let reality overwhelm you, because the reality is inside. On the outside is the illusion. It hasn't happened yet. There are things there. Yes, there's concrete things there. But in order for the thing to be created, it has to be put into your mind. And if you've got a clean slate and you're not holding on to guilt, if you're not, you need to forgive somebody in your life, but you haven't yet, and it's hard as hell to do. But imagine how much bandwidth you can free up. Imagine the creativity that comes in when you do something bold, when you do something that is not necessarily, it's not even right or wrong, but is good for you. Oh man, it's hard to cut out McDonald's when you eat it every day. It's hard. It's really hard to cut out the ice cream if you have it every night after dinner. That's really hard. It may seem simple, but it's really hard for somebody that's borderline depression, doesn't like their job, marriage is in a rut, bills are stacking. It's all that stuff out there. And then they die, like, a week later or a month later. The time is unknown. So to sit here and frame everything going like I should hate my past, I should be guilty and nobody will, I hold it so secret and it hurts so much and I shouldn't have done it. We've all done it. We're all imperfect. We've all done stuff that we're not proud of. And just being transparent with yourself on paper each day, you start to review your life and you start to see it and you're like, yeah, like I can change this. I can change my thinking. I just haven't spent enough time programming myself to look at it differently. And that's where it all starts. It's just, if the listeners could take anything from this call, it's pen and paper. That's it. Pen and paper. Just get really comfortable with that and just start. No judgment, no guilt, no editor, nothing. Just let it flow. And that's where the voice the inner child starts to emerge. Because we're all, a copywriter told me this, Paris Lampropoulos. He said, we're all wounded kids in adult bodies. And when you write copywriting, um, focus on that, and you'll find out that we're like all the same on the inside and just look differently on the outside, because we're our emotion. We all get sad. Uh, it it's our deep wiring. I mean, you don't teach a baby to smile. Sometimes they just smile, and you're like, how do they do that? Like, is there a manual to smile? So this is where that it's simple stuff, but is it easy? Not really. And that's why I encourage people to get on the ball right away, because the the faster you get at doing that boring stuff, the subtraction, the isolation with nature, your mind will be renewed. You'll just see things differently that most people are too distracted and focused on it. You'll start to see it. You go to the grocery store, you go in your family, you go to the to work, and you'll start to see, man, there's a lot of stuff going on with that guy. I don't know what it is. And that's a superpower. And that's an opportunity to go over and connect and help people. And that's what I love what you're doing with your podcast too. It's just like enlightening people to see this new vision of life.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to kind of, provide a metaphor for something that you talk about, the boring stuff, the pen and paper, the going within. And it's not the most exciting and sexy and fun. It's not like, scrolling through TikTok and watching dances for an hour. It can be challenging, it can be painful. And when I was a high school basketball player, I was at a camp, and we just literally did fundamentals for like hours. And they're like, you have to fall in love with the boring. Like, you have to fall in love with footwork. And like, that is the foundation of everything. If you don't have good footwork, you don't have a good core, you don't have good balance, you're not going to be a good player. And it's the same thing in life when you're talking about how you're showing up in a day, how you're showing up in whatever it is. Do you do your foundational work every morning? Do you do your boring work of pen to paper, some form of meditation, whether you're like sitting on the top of the mountain and breathing deep, or are you writing and reflecting on what are you afraid of? What's the new story you're telling yourself? That boring work, that's what separates you from like really living a more conscious, engaged, and fulfilling life.
Totally agree. If you build that foundation on sand, when the storm comes, aka a problem, you're going to get washed out pretty quick. So build that foundation on solid rock, solid truth, and a big chunk of the truth is ancient wisdom and your story, your past. No longer in denial, no longer pretending it didn't happen, And understanding that your fellow humans out there are, with social media, it's just trying to look better. It's teaching people that, like, you have an opportunity to look better, to change your life, to reframe things. When in reality, you have to do that first. You have to do the inner work first, and then you can put it out online. That's where it's at. And we have that flipped now. It's like, well, I got 100 likes on this post, so now, well, be careful. Your dope centers are going to start hitting. That's going to start signaling to you that that's your worth. But no, 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 that's not true. Because what? Now next week you get 50 likes and you don't feel so good. While there's other people out there that get nothing. Um, you know, Actually, those are the real winners. Those are the ones that are actually having, like, they're not actually being drugged down another path of feeling this certain way about because people like them again. And that attention game, that focus game, is good, but it's deadly too. Because other people, you robbing other people's focus to go here, you better, you got to have something good, and you got to deliver, and it's got to be good for them. Because people now, they detect what's not really good for them, and they have a hard time cutting it out because they're programmed for it. They don't know where to go. Like, they would go to something else, but they don't know. So therefore they just stick with the job. They're turning down their curiosity knob, and they're no longer seeking something because they believe that there is no more hope. There is not another thing to believe in. But when you look at your past and you start to ask those bigger questions, all of a sudden you start to say, wow, I had a really tough time in this part of my life. How in the heck did I make it? How did I give me the equation? And you can't come up with it other than the universe has got your back type of stuff, the something was watching you. Because, in the business world today, they want, if I can't touch it, I can't see the data, you don't have any proof, I'm not going to believe you. It's real big in today's world. It's like they don't even, their sense of wonder has just completely washed away, because of so many distractions, so many failures, and trying to be this person and then feeling down about it, and just this vicious cycle of trying to be, turn yourself from a nobody into a somebody. And it's not really all it's cracked up to be. I've talked to a few that I've talked to people that are six-figure earners, and they're broke. And I don't mean that by money. I mean that by, they're always busy doing stuff that they don't like. They're never home. Uh, they don't have any really solid, like, they have a couple good friends, but it's, more business than anything else. They're broke. And money has nothing to do with it. It's just in their mind and their soul, and they just become a machine. And uh subtract. That's the key word here. Subtract. What can you cut out and just be a solid human being and do good out there? And you'll never go hungry. That's my words of wisdom to everybody out there. You do good, you help people, and you cut things out that you know that you don't need, you will never go hungry in your life. Yep. I'm living
That's
proof of that.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's powerful. And sharing an experience of my own with that. This is my second round of doing the podcast, and I actually get less listens now. I get way less listens. I actually don't even know how many I'm getting, to be honest, but I know
Mhm.
it's less. But I love it. I have way more fun doing it because I've it's been, I think the last episode I recorded was in March. So I don't, that's got to be like 6 months ago from
Mhm.
when we're recording this. And I just judged myself so much more. I saw my views, my listens go way up, and then they dropped. And then so did my energy and motivation to do podcasting. I don't even look at them now. I just love having these conversations, to be honest. And I love, I put out some other content on the podcast as well. And I just do it. I do it for the love. And I do it because it brings me joy. And I think, and I do it to bring people value. Because I know that's what the universe has kind of tapped into me, and there's no rush. If I get, X amount of listens tomorrow, that's cool. If I get even more, that's cool. I'm working, especially as a creator, not getting too high on the days where you get a nice shout out and it feels good. I want to recognize that. I don't want to just be like, shove it under the rug, but don't get too high, and don't get too low on the days where I write something and it gets 0 likes on Twitter. Okay. Well, didn't agree with the people, then didn't serve the message, or maybe it just didn't get read. Algorithm, who knows? Who really knows? But just not getting too high and too low off of some of those things. And as we wrap up, you've dropped a lot of wisdom. But I would love for you to, invite you to have any parting words, and also where the listeners can find you as well, find your work.
Sure. They can find me at www.arnold-flores.com. That's where I have a lot of my work, and Twitter as well, at a Flores copywriter. Some parting words, some wisdom, some food for thought is questions are like the hinges to a big door. You don't need a lot of them. You don't need like a book full of questions. But if you can just get one from the start of your day, journaling, being isolated, walking in nature, if you had one question and you could just get a little bit closer to answering it and you would feel fulfilled, go that path. Go that way. Seek that truth. The truth is you. It's in you. And the more you avoid it with fluffy questions of, how could I do this faster? How could I, where's a cool app to make this better? None of that. It's all in you. And if you spend more time and focus on you, your life is going to change for the better. You'll never, like I said, you'll never go hungry. You will go through things that you never thought you could go through by building that inner confidence and mindset in a world gone crazy. And I highly suggest people to do that. Subtract, go for that walk, and you don't need a ton of questions, just one. And if you can dust that off and start to get traction on that, you're off to the races.
Off to the races. I love it. I loved our conversation today. You dropped so much wisdom, and I appreciate your time, Arnold. And for those that are listening, comment, engage, reach out to him, reach out to myself, and go within, spend time with yourself. 5-10 minutes a day. It's better than 0 minutes a day. So have a great day, Arnold. And for all you listeners, have an even better one.
Thanks, Justin.